Good afternoon. My name is Selena Miller, Health Programs Coordinator within the Office of Health and Constituent Affairs, and I'll be your moderator today. Welcome to today's webinar on the Sentinel System, FDA's unique safety surveillance tool, hosted by our office, the Office of Health and Constituent Affairs, as part of the FDA Patient Representative Program. In this webinar, you will learn about the Sentinel System, an increasingly vital tool in FDA's post-marketing safety surveillance system for medical products, such as drugs, vaccines, and medical devices. This webinar will provide an overview of Sentinel's story, successes, and ongoing value. The webinar also will describe the efforts and impact of a multi-stakeholder engagement workgroup in developing tailored messages about Sentinel and identifying dissemination channels to reach a diverse audience. You also will have an opportunity to ask questions at the end. This training activity was coordinated by my OCA colleague, Commander Steve Morin, and myself, and will be delivered by Dr. David Tyler Coyle from the Center for Drug Evaluation and Research's Office of Surveillance and Epidemiology, and Stephen Kita, lead Sentinel Engagement Partners Workgroup, Sentinel Planning Board member, patient advocate, and a seasoned FDA patient representative. Now, as you listen to both presentations, feel free to type your question or questions into the chat box on your computer screen, and we will read those questions during the question and answer period once both presentations are over. If you are having technical issues, we suggest you reboot your computer or restart your browser, or you may email us at fdapatientrepprogram@fda.hhs.gov. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Coyle, who will provide an overview of the Sentinel System, and after which Steve Nikita will provide information on the Sentinel Sentinel Engagement Partners Workgroup. Dr. Doyle.
Thank you very much for that warm welcome, and thank you all for joining for this session. I think it's going to be a really interesting discussion, and I'm excited to be here and present with Steve. So again, my name is Tyler Coyle. I'm looking forward to presenting. So we'll go next slide. Oh, here we go. This is the right slide. All right. So high-level overview. Sentinel is FDA's medical product safety surveillance system created in response to a congressional mandate. It's primarily composed of administrative claims and healthcare data, and it's based on a distributed data network and a common data model. And I'll get into the nitty-gritty of what a lot of these terms mean for those folks who may not be familiar with them as we go further into the talk. Next slide, please. So a brief history of the Sentinel Initiative. In 2007, Congress passed the Food and Drug Administration Amendments Act, or FDA, granting the FDA several responsibilities and authorities with respect to the post-market surveillance and assessment of medical products. One aspect of FDA was mandating that FDA create a nationwide electronic medical product surveillance system. So in 2008, FDA launched the Sentinel Initiative in response to that mandate. Thereafter, in 2009, the mini Sentinel pilot, which was the precursor to Sentinel, was initiated. And in 2011, we hit the 100 million live mark mandated by FDA, meaning that we had data, information, healthcare information for over 100 million unique individuals. In 2012, Mini Sentinel continued its development of reusable computer programs for routine queries. And then in 2016, 2 years ago, the Sentinel system was formally launched and progressed steadily into full integration into routine regulatory review processes here at FDA. Next slide, please. So Sentinel is basically a big database that uses secondary data. Patient interaction within the U.S. healthcare system generates data. Every time a patient goes to visit their physician or picks up a pharmacy prescription or visits the hospital for a medical issue, that generates data based on our nation's unique healthcare system and the way that insurance claims work. So why is data collected? It's collected for payment and billing issues. It's collected to document clinical care. And it's collected for record keeping and other research-based activities like Sentinel. So these data provide a rich source of information for patient safety evaluations. Next slide, please. So as I said, data collected for several purposes. Advance, please. So there's administrative data. Again, every time you go to the physician or the clinic and you receive a procedure or you get a flu shot, these data are collected and coded for reimbursement purposes, and these are the data that Sentinel use. Again, every time you visit your healthcare provider, these clinical data document elements of your care to support clinical decision making, to keep you healthy, and so that the next time you come in, they can refer back to this information and make an informed decision about what to do next based on your history. Advance, please. And finally, data is also collected for registry purposes, for specific populations of interest, to learn more about, particularly in instances where a disease is uncommon and greater detail of information is needed to fully inform decisions about public health and regulatory perspectives there. Next slide, please. So Sentinel, FDA's distributed database, captures billions of encounters with the healthcare system. Populations with well-defined person time, where encounters with healthcare professionals are known and documented. That's the data that we have. We have over 223 million members since 2000. And that, when I say members, I mean unique patient ID values in the database. And we had over 178 million members with both medical and pharmacy benefits. Over 40 million people are currently accruing new data. And there's over 400 million person years of observation time upon which to perform epidemiologic studies. Next slide, please. So Sentinel is unique because it uses a common data model. And a common data model is basically a common language across different healthcare system data sources that allows for aggregation or adding together of large amounts of data. And the patient data stays secure because the source information resides at the healthcare system in the Sentinel distributed database. So what you have are a number of different databases that are all converting their information into the same language. And then we're putting it all together into a big single file. Next slide, please. Oops. Oh, back one, please. And one more. There we go. So this is the distributed database. As you can see in the top right of the slide, the Sentinel Operations Center, which works closely with us here at FDA, distributes a query to all of our data partners. We currently have, as of last week, 18 data partners. We need to update this infographic, so they distribute it to 18 data partners. And the data partners hold their data in a common data model format, as you can see in the top left box. These data elements include enrollment information, demography, so age, sex. It includes medical utilization, so visits to the clinic, visits to the emergency room, pharmacy prescriptions, what drugs are dispensed and in what formulation, and how many. Those kinds of information are included. Diagnoses as well. And diagnoses are generally kept in code format for billing purposes. And that's how we obtain information about different patients' medical issues. Procedures and lab tests and vital signs, all of these information are captured in the common data model. So the Sentinel Operations Center distributes a computer program or a query to these data partners that have this data in that model. Then the computer program runs on that data. And then all of the data partners return information from that computer program to the Sentinel Operations Center. And it's all done securely. Each data partner holds on to their own data behind their own secure firewall. So it's all de-identified, aggregated data. It's very secure, and no one at FDA or the Sentinel Operations Center has access to individual patient-level data. Next slide, please. So these are our scientific partners with FDA. So the lead is the Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare Institute. We have multiple data and scientific partners that you can see there, and then even more partners and collaborators with whom we work to further generate evidence and evaluate drug and medical product safety issues that arise. Next slide, please. These are a sampling of the data partners that we distribute queries to so that we can access each individual data partner's unique resources and unique populations that they cover. Next slide, please. So why is Sentinel important? Why does this matter? Well, it's a congressional mandate, that's one thing, but it generates real-world evidence to support regulatory actions aimed at protecting the public's health. And the FDA's mission is to protect the public's health. So that's what we are doing here. This evidence also helps inform healthcare provider decision-making for patients, so it ends up benefiting patients down the line. Next slide, please. So what kinds of questions can Sentinel answer? Well, this is a high-level idea of what kinds of things the system is built to answer. So the first bullet, you see the number of tablets of a particular product or drug dispensed in the outpatient setting in a particular year. We can also analyze the fraction of patients who filled a prescription for that product who also filled a prescription for another product. And maybe there's an interaction between those products that we want to study. We can also evaluate the risk of a problem among patients dispensed both drug X and drug Y compared to patients dispensed drug X and drug Z, and create a risk effect estimate that we can use as one piece of evidence to inform our regulatory decision making. So these are some of the questions in a broad sense that Sentinel can and has answered in the past. Next slide, please. So at this point, I want to highlight some of the communication efforts that we have undertaken in order to spread the word about Sentinel and to make sure that we're being fully transparent and showing everyone what kind of work we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we're doing it. So this is our Sentinel webpage. I encourage you to visit it. It's a beautiful webpage, very easy to navigate, and it includes all of our studies. We post everything. We are fully transparent. We are a government agency, and this is a program for the public. We want to make sure that everything we do that we are allowed to post is posted. You know, there are certain things that we can't post because they're in-house, and so we have a responsibility and obligation to keep those non-posted until they are ready for full posting, full public communication. Next slide, please. So here's a page on the website that shows how FDA has used Sentinel during its time as a full program. We have, and what this webpage does is connect the dots. This webpage shows what drug has been studied, what problem we looked at, and what we did with that information that we analyzed. And this is all public, and we include links to the regulatory determinations or uses for these studies. And we're very proud of this work to enhance our communication and transparency with the public. Next slide, please. And so with respect to everyone on the webinar now, you might be asking, well, all sounds very nice, Tyler, but what can patients do? And there are several things that patients can do to engage with the Sentinel system. The first is to talk about it. Talk with your healthcare providers, talk with your insurance plans, talk with folks to let them know what's going on. We want to build awareness. We want to build support for this important public health function. We also encourage you to visit our website for news and updates. And I hope to see and speak with many of you at one of Sentinel's many public workshops and meetings. Speaking of which, next slide, please. Next week is our 10th annual public workshop in Bethesda, Maryland. I hope that you are able to attend. You can register now online. This is currently a record-breaking year in terms of registration. We have well over 300 people registered to attend in person and many more to attend remotely. So please register so that you can come and hear the kinds of great scientific work that we're doing, and you can learn even more about the Sentinel system. Next slide, please. So in summary, Sentinel is FDA's national medical product monitoring system that uses a common data model and a distributed database. It generates evidence to inform clinical decision making, and there are lots of ways to stay informed and active with Sentinel. And here are some links to help guide you to those activities. Next slide. So I'd like to thank you for your attention. I'd like to hand the floor over to Steve Makita, who is going to give his presentation on the activities of the work group. And at this time, again, thanks for your attention. I'm looking forward to a lively Q&A after Steve's talk.
Thank you, Tyler. Hello, everyone. I'm thrilled for this opportunity to address all of you colleagues who are patient representatives and who are patient advocates. I'm thrilled by this opportunity and very, very grateful to Selena Miller and Steve Warren for providing this webinar and also for Tyler's efforts. I couldn't be more grateful, so let's take it away. Next slide, please. A little over 2 years ago, a multi-stakeholder work group was formed to raise awareness among 4 critically important engagement partners, namely the public. Could you further advance the slide to show the 4 members? The public, health advocacy groups, including patient advocacy groups, providers, and health plan members. The goal of the work group was to inform each of these groups about this invaluable safety tool, how it works, as Tyler has described, and the commitment by FDA to protect patient privacy. Next slide, please. Next. The work group was tasked with the following. Can we go back a slide, please? Can we go back one slide? Thanks. The work group was tasked with the following. First, we created a plan of action to increase awareness about the Sentinel System story, to shed a light on its successes, and to articulate the value proposition. Next, we developed customized messages to reach all 4 target constituencies and receive feedback from all of the relative targeted audiences to focus each story to be both meaningful and relevant. Next slide, please. Now, this diagram illustrates the interdependent nature of our work group. Each engagement partner informed the respective Sentinel System stories that our work group developed. Next slide, please. Our efforts were framed around 3 foundational principles. Each of the 4 Sentinel System stories are open and transparent about the Sentinel System's purpose, capabilities, and successes. Each story is relevant and meaningful to the respective engagement partner. And the specific narratives, as well as dissemination channels, must be effective and understandable for each audience. Next slide, please. To be effective and consistent, our work group identified the key components of the Sentinel system. Each story coalesces around each significant aspect of this tool, and yet, not one size fits all. We created stories for 4 different audiences, possessing different interests and needs, and yet each story contains the same information about Sentinel. The public and provider stories can be found on the Sentinel Initiative website, as Tyler mentioned. But most important to this group is the health or patient advocacy story. We will distribute that story and an entire media toolkit for your consideration and sharing among your respective audience following this webinar. Next slide, please. Each narrative for the 4 target audiences includes these 5 components. First, introducing FDA's safety mission and the fact that the Sentinel system is only one of several important tools in FDA's toolbox to ensure the safety of medical products. Second, what makes up the Sentinel system? Third, a description of how Sentinel works. Fourth, we've provided examples of the Sentinel system in action. And finally, each story describes FDA's commitment to patient privacy. Next slide, please. Now, here is a screenshot of the Sentinel Initiative website, and you can connect at sentinelinitiative.org. This is what Tyler has already covered. Next slide, please. Now, this is a very, very relevant site. This is a magnification of where you can find the Sentinel system story for the public and for providers. And it's on the front page. And you click on the Sentinel system story, and you'll see there's 2 respective stories. Next slide, please. Now, we have focused on the key aspects featured in the health, patient advocacy, and public stories here, and we have aligned them. This particular segment describes how the Sentinel system works and explains how the Sentinel system answers basic questions involving large groups and patterns among patients. How many people are taking the same drug or getting the same vaccine? How many are having bad side effects? How many are males and females? How many are young, old, pregnant, or taking other drugs? You can see that the patient advocacy group or health advocacy group story tells the same story, but takes a different approach to meet the needs of all of you and your members. Next slide. Next, we explain how FDA uses this surveillance tool and what it does with this information to help patients. The FDA gets important answers from the Sentinel system about bad side effects in certain drugs or vaccines or other medical products. It studies this new information along with other information it gets from clinicians and drug companies. Then, the FDA decides the best way to make providers and patients aware of these side effects. And the FDA can then decide the best way to warn clinicians and patients about taking a medical product. Next slide, please. The work group felt very strongly about the value proposition for both the public and patient groups. First example comes from a 2012 study involving a new anticoagulant. The FDA responded to reports about patients taking a new drug. The reports received concerned patients breathing too much on the new medication. The Sentinel System gathered information not only from patients on this new drug, but also from a large cohort taking an older anticoagulant. The result was that the new intervention was no less safe than the older treatment, and thus patients could continue taking the newer medication while additional studies were monitoring the safety of the newer product. Next slide, please. Finally, the last element covered in the Sentinel System story for both health, patient advocacy groups, and the public is FDA's commitment to patient privacy and personal identity. Next slide, please. Now, this is one of our proudest deliverables. Here is a very clear infographic of these respective narratives captured in 4 columns below the question, what is the Sentinel System? This infographic, as you will see, is already part of the Sentinel System website and will be included in your media toolkit that will be disseminated to all of the attendees of this webinar following the webinar. At the top is a very succinct explanation of Sentinel. The next 4 columns describe how it works, the commitment to privacy, the kinds of questions the Sentinel System asks and answers, and then how FDA uses this information. Next slide. Next come the frequently asked questions. Again, these questions will be included as part of your media toolkit that you can use in whatever way you deem appropriate to your members. The FAQs provide a convenient description to help in your dissemination of the story, the infographic, and answer any other questions about the Sentinel System. Can we open this slide up a little bit more? These are the other frequently asked questions about the Sentinel System, and really is a restatement of the information already provided in the health advocacy, patient advocacy group stories, public stories, as well as the infographic. Next slide, please. And again, these are some more frequently asked questions that will be part of your toolkit. And again, you can always reach me or my colleague Susan Farrow at the Sentinel Operations Group System. We've provided you with our email addresses. Next slide, please. Now, again, this is part of the toolkit that will be distributed to all of you. It includes the infographic, copies of both the public story and the health advocacy group story, as well as the FAQs. Next slide, please. I want to thank in particular Susan Farr, the Senior Project Manager at the Sentinel Operations Center, and also Catherine Freitas, Research Assistant. I could not have accomplished the work that we did on this project over the last 2.5 years without Susan's insights, her energy, her passion, and her knowledge, and we could not have designed the infographic without Catherine's skills and gifts. Thank you. We are prepared for your questions.
So this is our time now that we'll be looking at the next questions. So we have one question here that I believe it's for Dr. Coyle, but if I'm directing it to the wrong person, Steve Makita, please join in. So we were asked a question, are patients directly involved in Sentinel?
That's a great question. So I'll start off, and then I can pass it off to Steve to finish off the answer. The answer is yes. Sentinel does not exist without patients. That is because Sentinel relies on patients' data. Every time the patient interacts with the healthcare system, with the healthcare provider, and that interaction is documented and covered by insurance, then that is, by definition, supporting Sentinel and Sentinel's mission of protecting the public health interests of the United States. So yes, patients are absolutely critical. They are the reason that Sentinel exists, and they are the most important part of the database because it is their information that we use to protect the public health of the nation. And Steve, if you have anything that you would like to add, that would be great.
Thank you, Tyler. Yes, and specifically, there are 3 patient representatives on the Sentinel Planning Board that meets several times a month for reports about the system, and our input is always welcome and encouraged. And the other way is that their patients can alert FDA in other ways through the FAERS and VAERS system if there are any bad side effects. So globally speaking, do patients have input? You bet, because patients are basically interacting with the system. Now, because of these efforts, not only the public is more informed, but also patient representatives like you and me are better informed as to what it does, how it works, and how FDA uses it, so that we can be patient ambassadors to the healthcare system in alerting the healthcare system to its existence and also their reference to that system. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. So we have another question asking what safeguards are in place to prevent computer hacking. There's been a lot of computer breaches through systems, and how can patients in the community ensure that their information is safe?
That's a great point, because this is something that's very much in the news and is very much a reality of the world we live in. The simple answer is that Sentinel has been set up to make it really, really hard for somebody to go in and get an individual's information through a hacking mechanism. This is largely by virtue of the way that it's built, the distributed database. Each data partner, which is usually a health insurance provider, retains their own data behind their own firewall with their own security protocols to ensure that to keep the bad guys out. They don't want to betray the trust of their patients, and so they go to great lengths to make sure that their data remains secure. And now imagine that 18 times. And that is the substantial wall that a hacker would have to overcome in order to really gain access to this system. And so simply the architecture of the system makes it really challenging for somebody to go in and cause mischief, because there's just too many hurdles, because each data partner presents its own separate hurdle.
Thank you. We have another question asking if certain treatments, can treatment outcomes be evaluated by specific cancer treatments? So is there something set up in the program for something like that?
Absolutely. We can set up our queries and our analyses to evaluate what kinds of outcomes are experienced by patients who have a certain disease or who take a certain drug or other medical product. So yes, we can absolutely do that, and we have done that to inform regulatory decision making. We know that cancer-related medical outcomes are a huge priority, and that's an area of expansion that we're looking to as we continue to move forward.
Thank you. We have a few questions, and I'm going to sort of lump them together, asking about how can this information be shared, and also has it been shared with traditional media and social media outlets?
So I'll start off, and then I'll pass it off to Steve. This information, everything that's on our website can be shared. It's in the public domain. It is for you. It is for the patients, and it's for the American public. So everything that we put up there, take it with you. And I think this is a great opportunity to highlight the beautiful toolkit that the work group has put together. And Steve, if it's all right with you, I'll pass it to you so that you can talk a little bit about some of the modalities of dissemination of this information and best practices for ensuring that the correct information gets to the correct individuals.
Thank you, Tyler. Yes, I think that the purpose of the work groups was to, as Tyler said initially, to be as open and transparent as we can. We also wanted to design the messaging to meet the needs of each of the four distinct audiences. So there have been many public articles throughout the media about the Sentinel system over the last 10 years. Also, our hope is, as I said in my remarks earlier, that all of you will inform your own members and other interested parties about the existence of Sentinel, and we hope that by providing you with the two stories, both for the public and also for health and patient advocacy groups, that you'll share these stories about the Sentinel system and also utilize the infographic that we've provided. So I think there's a number of ways, but we're not going to presume to know all of the outlets and options that you have available to your own individual patient networks. We would invite you and encourage you to raise awareness about this surveillance tool. And that was basically the goal of this entire project. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. We have another question that's asking, so the question is, change in labeling if drug A is consistently used for condition X, no other good treatment available, but it's not on the label. Would this system initiate a label change?
So that's a great question. And the short answer is the Sentinel, well, I guess it's not going to be a short answer. There's not really a good short answer there. But the Sentinel system could certainly evaluate this situation. But from a regulatory perspective, the Sentinel system and the analyses and the data within Sentinel are one tool in the regulatory toolbox. So there are a lot of different other data streams and other information that need to be considered for something like a labeling change. There's a whole infrastructure here at FDA for receiving, say, adverse event reports from the public or from providers or from drug sponsors, drug makers. There are other medical literature, and there are drug submission documents for applications that come into FDA. And all of this information that comes in is taken in its totality when evaluating a potential regulatory decision like a labeling change. And so the somewhat less short answer is Sentinel could play a part in that situation, but it would be one part of a larger whole.
Thank you very much. We have another question asking, how long does it typically take for any type of data being recorded by one of your partners to make its way into the Sentinel itself? Is it being constantly synced, or does this happen periodically?
That's a great question. So it typically takes a few months for the data to get in to the Sentinel system for use by FDA. Let's say, on average, about 6 to 9 months, depending on the kind of data and depending on the data partner. If you could imagine a situation where a patient goes to the hospital because they aren't feeling well, they stay in the hospital, and then they're discharged, you could imagine a situation where perhaps the code that was used at admission ends up being not quite the right code to capture the ultimate reason the patient was there. And so the administrative trail effectively gets audited over time. And so that's one reason why there's a lag, is because you have situations that could change after the fact. And we want to make sure that the data are completely accurate, and we want to give them a chance for the data to, quote unquote, to settle. And so for medical data, that usually involves a few months. Now, for other kinds of data, the Sentinel system is able to update within a matter of weeks. Say for prescription data. For prescription data, we know whether or not a prescription was dispensed. It's not in question. And so we can capture that, and we can send out focused queries to data partners to receive, quote unquote, fresher prescription data, so that we can make decisions based on the most recent data available.
Thank you. Another question is, who has access to the system? Could a non-Sentinel investigator have access to the system?
So currently, the FDA holds primary access to the system. Sentinel has a number of collaborating institutions and data partners with whom we share access and sort of curate that access through the Sentinel Operations Center. The drug industry and other private entities have access to the Sentinel system through the Innovation in Medical Evidence Development and Surveillance system, the IMEDS system, run under the auspices of the Reagan-Udall Foundation. And so that is an opportunity for private entities to gain access to the Sentinel infrastructure and resources for the purpose of generating evidence in this field.
Perfect. Another question is the Sentinel system set up to flag rare, unanticipated side effects of newly approved agents, or does the system only respond to queries?
So that's another great question. Presently, the system is set up at FDA largely to respond only to queries. However, we're in the process of developing the capability of what is being described here. We call it signal detection and signal refinement, such that we can, as you said, flag rare and unanticipated side effects. The one capability that has been developed and continues to be under development is a capability called tree scan that we continue to evaluate its potential to inform these kinds of questions. But at present, you're absolutely right. It's largely set up to run queries from other, where the signal has been generated from other sources.
And so we have a couple of questions I'm going to combine to some degree. One of them is talking about adverse event reporting. And does the system incorporate or tie into voluntary adverse event reporting? And are all adverse events analyzed?
Another great question. I'm loving this audience. So the short answer, I'll answer the second question first. The short answer is no. We don't analyze every adverse event report. I think that the number of adverse event reports that come into FDA each year are something in the 6 or 7 figures. I mean, it's hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of adverse event reports. And so we simply wouldn't have the bandwidth in order to evaluate every single one. But in terms of using information from adverse event reports, Sentinel absolutely does that. We work closely with our colleagues in the Division of Pharmacovigilance, who receive and sort and filter through those adverse event reports to see if they can detect any patterns. If they see, a dozen case reports of people having the same or similar problems after taking the same drug, well, that's going to raise your eyebrows. That's going to be something you might want to look at a little bit more closely. See if there's anything you can glean, and then hey, maybe we'll call up those Sentinel folks and see if they can figure this out and run some analyses to see if there's any evidence for that. So we absolutely do work with the adverse event reporting system and the personnel who monitor that, and that's one of our closest collaborations.
Thank you. We have time for 2 more questions. One of the questions is, does information during the research phase, such as during clinical trials, get entered, or is this only for products that are post-market?
Great question. It's primarily post-market. Depending on the nature of the product, there are some nuances that we may be able to evaluate some aspects of a quote-unquote new product in our system, but it's almost exclusively post-market. And so we're after approval, and once the drug is on the market, that's when we can really come into our own.
Perfect. And the last question kind of ties into the patient-focused drug development initiative. Does Sentinel have any interaction with that? Is there any communication with that?
So the Sentinel has a limited role in that development. Insofar as the system works continuously with divisions such as the division that set up this webinar and works with our stakeholder engagement work group and with the Professional Affairs and Stakeholder Engagement Office here at FDA, we want and are committed to meeting the needs and hearing the feedback from patients as pertains to drug development. And so absolutely there's a role, but I will say that it's largely, we haven't gone too far into that yet.
And I lied, we have one more question.
Oh, okay.
This will be the final question. When the evidence is shared with regulatory and scientific channels, what are those channels?
When the evidence is shared within regulatory and scientific channels, there's a number of different modes of communication that we use. So within the regulatory channels, within the agency, we have close working relationships with our colleagues in the clinical pre-approval review divisions and within different offices and centers across FDA. So the internal sharing is an important component of our communication framework. Now for external sharing, the scientific aspect of it, we can and often do participate in scientific meetings and attend conferences and publish in journals and publish abstracts. And I believe that at last year's International Conference on Pharmacoepidemiology, we had over 20 abstracts and 3 symposia. So we're proactively taking the message that we're getting out there so that we can continue to communicate the work we're doing. And I would also put in a plug for our amazing website that again connects the dots for how Sentinel analyses have been used by FDA to inform regulatory decisions and maintaining and ensuring public health.
Wonderful. What a great set of questions, as Dr. Joel said. I want to thank the speakers, Dr. Joel and Steve Nikita, for their presentations, and of course you all, the attendees, for participating today. I hope this webinar was informative and has demonstrated the Sentinel System's public health value and its commitment to protect patient privacy. We hope that you can use this important information as you continue to connect within your communities. If you have additional questions, please feel free to email us at FDA Patient Rep Program at fda.hhs.gov. Again, thanks for your participation. We appreciate your ongoing support of FDA and its mission. Have a great afternoon.